If I audition for something, make it in, move my whole life, move everything around, go across the country, hell, maybe go across the world, and spend years training my voice, my dancing, my stamina, everything about me, changing everything about me, to then get thrown in a girl group to sing, eat zucchini, eat zucchini. I'd pull my gun out on every single person in that room. Are you serious? Are you serious? KATSEYE has vocal powerhouses. Laura's skills are unmatched. And y'all got her on this stage singing Gnarly Fried Chicken Mansion.
If you ever want to understand how broken the modern pop machine can feel, you do not need a documentary or an expose or some secret insider leak. You just need to look at a situation like this and sit with how ridiculous it is. Imagine you audition for something big. You make it in. You move your whole life. You move everything around. You cross the country. Maybe you cross the world. You spend years training your voice, your dancing, your stamina, everything about you. You change your whole routine, your whole identity, your whole body clock. Then after all that, you finally debut, and the big moment they give you is a song built around a phrase so silly that the internet cannot even take it seriously. Not because you cannot sing, not because you cannot dance, not because you do not deserve it, but because the people in charge decided the product matters more than the artist. That is the kind of frustration that makes fans feel like they are watching something valuable being wasted in real time. And that is why this whole conversation exists in the first place. Because on paper, KATSEYE should be winning so hard that it would not even be a debate. KATSEYE were built with the kind of infrastructure that most artists would sell their soul for. A televised survival show, a polished debut, a global marketing push, and the security of being attached to a system that has already proven it can turn trainees into international stars. That is the dream package. The kind of setup where all you are supposed to do is show up, perform, and watch the machine do the rest. Meanwhile, Adela is supposed to be the person who fell off the conveyor belt, the contestant who got eliminated, the name you remember for a week, then quietly stop hearing about once the final lineup starts releasing music. In the normal version of this story, the group gets the fame, the eliminated contestant becomes a footnote, and everyone moves on. Yet the internet has landed on the exact opposite conclusion. Not because KATSEYE are untalented. Nobody with a functioning brain thinks KATSEYE are untalented. They have vocal powerhouses. They have members with real skills. The talent is not the debate. The debate is what that talent is being used for and what the audience feels when they look at each name. This is also not simply about who is bigger right now. This is about who looks like they are building a real career versus who looks like they are being pushed through a content pipeline. That difference matters because fame can be manufactured fast, but a career is something you build with identity, direction, and choices that make people respect you long term. The simplest way to see the difference is to watch what happens when each name comes up. When Adela is mentioned, the discussion revolves around her music, her identity, and her direction. People talk about her singles, people talk about her upcoming EP, The Provocator, and whether she is carving out a strong solo lane. It sounds like a real artist conversation. Even if the audience is smaller, the conversation is clean. It is focused on the work, the sound, the path, and what comes next. But when KATSEYE is mentioned, the discussion almost instantly turns into a debate about lyrics, writing choices, and why a group with this much talent keeps being given songs that make them hard to take seriously. People are not debating their vocals. People are debating the decisions being made around them. That alone tells you who feels like an artist and who feels like a product. Adela's momentum looks small compared to a global group on paper, but it looks clean. That is the important word, clean. She released Death by Devotion, and people responded to it as an actual song. Not as a meme, not as a joke, not as a clip designed to be looped for 15 seconds and forgotten. Then Machine Girl starts getting treated like a hit inside her growing audience. The kind of track that makes people feel like she is finding a lane. Superstar gets talked about as proof that she can hold attention on her own. This is how solo artists are supposed to grow. Slowly, clearly, with people paying attention to the work rather than the gimmick. It is not always loud, but it is stable. It is not always viral, but it is real. More importantly, Adela feels like a person, not a product. That sounds like a small thing, but it is actually everything. She speaks directly. She explains herself. She does not feel filtered through a branding committee. There is a human texture to how people perceive her, and when audiences feel that, they become more patient. They give you room to evolve. They let you make imperfect moves because they believe the person behind the music is steering the ship. With Adela, the conversation is not just about what she releases, it is about who she is becoming. That is how you build a real career, not just a loud debut. What makes this even more interesting is that Adela did not come out of the system with a perfect image. A lot of the backlash she received during the survival show era was rooted in people wanting a clean villain. She was framed as difficult, negative, or ungrateful. The audience loves simple stories, and survival shows feed that hunger because they need characters, they need heroes, they need villains, they need someone to blame. But if you actually pay attention, what she was reacting to was not random attitude. She was reacting to a system that demanded constant sacrifice while quietly shifting its own rules. Trainees were pushed to believe that overworking was the only way to be chosen. That overwork was the badge of seriousness. That exhaustion was proof you deserved it. Then the show airs and suddenly rest, health breaks, and inconsistent effort were not disqualifying anymore. That contradiction mattered. It reveals what the system really rewards: compliance more than honesty. People who play along more than people who say what they see. And when someone refuses to smile through that kind of contradiction, it is easy for a show to paint them as the problem. Now look at KATSEYE in that light. This is a group with the kind of lineup that should be delivering moments, vocal moments, performance moments. Real, this is why they were chosen moments. You should be watching them and thinking, there is no way this fails because the talent is too stacked. But the public conversation keeps sliding away from their ability and landing on the material they are being given. When the main talking point becomes the lyrics, when the debate becomes why the writing choices feel unserious, when the reaction becomes embarrassment instead of admiration, that is when you start feeling like the machine is not serving the artist. It is using the artist. It turns the members into vehicles for an idea that is not about music first. It is about engagement first, about screenshots, about clips, about virality. And that is why the internet keeps circling back to this uncomfortable conclusion that Adela is doing better, because better does not always mean bigger. Better can mean clearer. Better can mean cleaner. Better can mean the audience is talking about your work like it matters. Better can mean the next step feels like a step forward instead of a reset. Better can mean you look like you are building a career that belongs to you. When people say Adela is doing better, they are not claiming she has a bigger marketing push. They are saying she looks like she has something more valuable, a direction that makes sense, and a public identity that does not feel like it is being controlled by a boardroom. What makes KATSEYE's situation sting is that the frustration does not even feel like hate anymore. It feels like people watching wasted potential, like watching someone with a great hand of cards throw it away on purpose. The common theme is not these girls cannot do it. It is why are they not being allowed to do it? That is the difference between criticism that comes from jealousy and criticism that comes from disappointment. Disappointment is heavier because it means the audience actually cares. It means they see the talent, they hear the ability, they believe in what could be happening. And that is why the conversation is so intense, because everyone can sense that this group could be delivering something powerful, something that earns respect, something that matches the years of training and sacrifice that brought them here. So here's where part 1 ends and where the real problem begins. Because if Adela's story is about building something clean and human and steady, KATSEYE's story is starting to look like a warning sign. Not about the members, not about their vocals, not about their work ethic, but about what happens when a label keeps choosing the algorithm over the artist. About what happens when the output starts to feel like a joke that went too far and nobody had the courage to stop it. And once you see that pattern, you cannot unsee it, because it explains why the group with every advantage is being treated like a case study in wasted potential, while the one who did not even make it is starting to look like the one who actually won. What makes the KATSEYE situation so uncomfortable once you really sit with it is that the problem is not subtle anymore. It is loud. It is repetitive. It is patterned. And patterns are the thing you cannot explain away with excuses. One bad song can be a misstep. One awkward concept can be chalked up to experimentation. But when the same kind of decision keeps showing up again and again, that is no longer experimentation. That is direction. And direction is what determines whether a group becomes respected artists or just another moment that burned bright and then collapsed under its own gimmicks. The frustrating part is that nobody is asking KATSEYE to be boring. Nobody is asking them to be safe. People are asking them to be serious in a way that matches the amount of effort that went into creating the group. This is a lineup that should be delivering vocal moments that make people stop scrolling, performance moments that make you understand exactly why each member was chosen, moments where you feel the years of training paying off in real time. Instead, what keeps happening is that the music makes it harder to take them seriously. The conversation keeps shifting away from how good they are and toward why the songs feel like they were designed to be laughed at instead of respected. A big part of that is the writing. The lyrics have become the main talking point, and not because they are clever or emotional or bold in a meaningful way. They are talked about because they feel like they were designed to be screenshotted, designed to go viral as clips, designed designed to spark irony rather than connection. When you give a group with this much training lyrics that make them sound younger, smaller, and more manufactured than they actually are, you shrink them. You reduce their presence. You take people who should feel larger than life and trap them inside a joke that wears thin very quickly. That frustration turns into something heavier when you remember what these members went through to get here. Years of training, language barriers, physical exhaustion, mental pressure, sacrifice that most people will never see. And then the output sounds like it belongs to a novelty playlist. There is something genuinely disrespectful about that contrast. You are telling me someone can survive a brutal system, learn a new language, give up years of their life, and the end result is a song where the main hook is a phrase that people cannot even defend without sounding embarrassed. That disconnect is why fans get mad. Not because they hate the group, but because they feel like the system is laughing at the effort that went into creating them. The moment where this started to become obvious was gnarly. At the time, it felt like a risky experiment. The lyrics were cringe, the energy was strange, the vibe leaned more ironic than sincere, but it was catchy in a messy way, and because it went viral, it got a pass. People shrugged and said it was kind of slop, but fun slop. That was the mistake, because instead of seeing gnarly as a warning sign, it feels like the label saw it as proof of concept. Proof that as long as the algorithm reacts, the quality bar can keep dropping. Viral success became permission rather than a signal to be careful. Then 2026 arrived, and instead of a correction, the first song of the year doubled down. Internet Girl. Even the title sounds like satire. It sounds like something you would make up as a joke about how out of touch pop writing can be.
I'm getting out of here.
And somehow, the song delivers exactly what that title promises. Repetitive, brainless, irony-soaked. Lyrics that feel less like something written by humans with intent and more like something generated to fill space. It is the kind of song that confirms the worst fears people had after Gnarly. That the joke did not land by accident, it landed by design. The Eat Zucchini line is where things really crossed from silly into uncomfortable. At first it sounds stupid in a harmless way. Then people look into it and realize why the reaction shifted. Zucchini has been slang for male anatomy for years. That is not a stretch. That is not obscure. So now you have a song heavily implying a sexual act, built around repeating that phrase, and then you add a child's voice into the track. That is not edgy. That is not clever. That is irresponsible. The fact that this even made it past multiple layers of approval shows how badly quality control broke down. And it gets worse when you learn that a producer openly admitted to adding NSFW sounds into Gnarly because the song needed spice. That is not artistic vision. That is shock value for the sake of shock value. The reaction to Internet Girl made it clear that the patience people had during the Gnarly era was gone. Instead of ironic enjoyment, the response turned into confusion and embarrassment. The studio version did not fix anything. If anything, it made the issues more obvious. Then the visualizer dropped and somehow managed to lower expectations even further. Typos everywhere, sloppy editing, a presentation so low effort that people genuinely started accusing the team of using AI. Even if no AI was involved, the fact that people believed it could have been tells you how cheap the final product looked. That is not the standard you expect from a group that is supposed to represent the future of global pop. This is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. One bad song is forgivable. Two bad songs starts to look like a direction. Gnarly felt like a risky experiment that barely worked. Internet Girl feels like the same button being pressed again, with the expectation that the algorithm will clap the same way it did before. It is the musical equivalent of saying the same punchline twice and then acting confused when nobody laughs the second time. Once people recognize that pattern, they stop giving you the benefit of the doubt. What makes all of this more painful is that these songs actively hide the group's talent. Repeating a single phrase with heavy vocal processing does not showcase vocals. It does not showcase range. It does not showcase emotion. It does not showcase growth. It turns 6 highly trained performers into background props for a TikTok sound. You can hear how good they could be, and that makes it harder to sit through music that refuses to let them be good. That is the kind of frustration that sticks with fans because it feels like watching potential being buried on purpose. There is also this growing sense that even the members themselves do not fully connect with the music. It is subtle, but it shows. Some performances feel like obligation rather than excitement. When a group looks more alive during covers, live stages, or off-music content than they do during their own songs, that is a red flag. It suggests the music is not aligned with who they actually are or what they listen to. And when that disconnect becomes visible, the audience feels it immediately, even if they cannot articulate it right away. way. A lot of people try to defend these decisions by saying the songs are catchy, but catchy is not the same as good. A jingle is catchy too. That does not mean you want to replay it once the novelty wears off. A lot of KATSEYE's recent music loops in your brain for the wrong reasons. It sticks because it is annoying, not because it is meaningful. And once that novelty fades, there is nothing underneath to come back to. No depth, no replay value. No reason to stay invested beyond the initial reaction.